guys, let's move to our next speaker. Let me introduce you Erik Pöntiskoski, who is the CEO of Dodreams. This presentation drive ahead from publishing individual titles to a family of games.
Okay, hello everyone. Sorry, let me adjust myself this way. Hello everyone. So thank you Wargaming for inviting me over to talk. Let's battle! Okay, good. So before I start, I'd like to tell everybody here a secret. I am actually the great-grandson of Santa Claus. And everybody knows Santa Claus is from Finland. And my great-grandfather, Santa Claus, said to me that before you can become Santa Claus, you have to learn how to bring joy to the people of the world. So that's why, for the next about 200 years, I will be the CEO of the Dodreams game studio. And someday, when my beard is all white, I will be the next Santa Claus. So remember to be good, right? But my topic today is Drive Ahead, and I will be sharing my experiences from how our studio evolved from making these individual cool games to developing a family of games. So I'd like to share my experiences of a portfolio strategy to you. My personal background, in addition to being related to Santa Claus, is that I used to be a marketing teacher at a business school in Helsinki, and it was a wonderful job. I loved teaching. It allowed me to do research in Japan and the US and go all around the world. But then suddenly I realized that I don't want to only talk about business. I want to give it a try myself. So I became a startup entrepreneur, and for 3 years I had my own startup. And in the startup we had three different applications or products we developed. Every time I was more excited about the new thing we did, and every time it was even bigger failure than before. So 3 years total hell. And after that 3 years I felt that I'm a real big loser. That I made the biggest mistake of my life to leave the nice safe job at the university, talking about business, giving people advice about how they should do business, and I couldn't manage myself. But then I had some chats with some older or more experienced entrepreneurs, and they reminded me that you can learn something from failure. So I believe the two things I learned from my own startup was that first, I will never ever again create an application without testing it with real users as early as possible. So whatever kind of game or application you're making, you should get that feedback from users as early as possible. And the second thing was that how can you, with as little money, the little money you have, build an awesome team and find people who get excited about the vision and want to work with you. And this is something that I was asked to do at the Dodreams game studio. So my agenda today is the following. So in my experience, developers often are really excited about the next game they want to make. So they're not necessarily so excited about the game they are now polishing, but the idea they have that they want to do next. And there is less effort on growing a studio as a business. So I believe that as a developer you have a choice to make that is this a hobby or a lifestyle for me and my friends. That's perfectly fine, then you can do whatever you want. But if you want to make a living out of gaming and you want to grow it as a business, then you should be making games to players. So have some kind of customer segment in mind. So in our talk, I will present how this thinking evolved in our studio, and I'll give some examples of how we organized the production and were able to commercialize these games with the help of a community. So when I joined the Dodreams game studio, there was quite short runway, so the company didn't have very much money. But whatever money they had was a lot better than I had in my own startup because there was nothing left. It had all been spent. So, and then there was a very smart team and talented designers and developers, but they had been making these really big games. So I joined as an entrepreneur in this existing team. And they had made really big games, like 1.5 years developing a mobile game, and when you launch it, if it's not successful, then the company is at the verge of going bankrupt. So there was too much risk in developing these giant games. So we decided that let's create this minigame strategy, that if I put an artist and a developer pair, because there was only 6 developers in the company, so I could have 3 pairs. So they can make any game they want if they can do it in a couple of weeks or maximum a month or 2 from idea to publishing the game. And this, of course, was the time when there was Flappy Bird. But of course, maybe in my mind, I was thinking we could make the next Flappy Bird, but I wanted to unlock the creativity of the team. Because the team knew that they had made one big game for 1.5 years, and they had been working on a second big game for 6 months, and they knew that, if this isn't successful, then we're going to probably run out of money. So the idea was to get them to be not afraid about failure. So we had this artist-developer pair, and they could do basically whatever they wanted. So, and in order to pay salaries for the team, I was able to get a small loan from the Finnish government, and then I found some work for hire. So about 50% of our time we were doing work for customers, developing apps or games, and the other half they could do whatever they want. And this is what happened then. So during that 1 year, with only 50% of our time, we made these games. So the first one was Balloon Dolly. It was a game where you tilt your phone like this to avoid the sharp beaks of the birds. And this got maybe like 1,000 downloads or something like that. And then we made Ice Hole Fishing. It was a ice fishing game where you use your phone like this to catch fish. So really cool idea, but one of our board members complained to me that he hit himself in the head with the phone when he was playing it, and we got mixed reviews like it's a fun game, but this control is like totally stupid, because at the moment when you're trying to catch the fish, you have to do like this, and you don't see what's happening on the screen. So you didn't know if you caught the fish or not. But that got like 10,000 downloads. So we're thinking, hey, the direction is at least right. Then we made Cardboard Crooks. It was a shooter game where these criminals show up on screen, and then you have to tap the screen to shoot them, and you could have a machine gun or a shotgun. You have to avoid the innocent bystanders, like that poor barman who was walking around like this. And that got even less downloads than the first one. So instead of going in the right direction, we were going in the wrong direction. And then we made Kunin Ninja in Training. It was a high-score chaser skill game where you have this ninja jumping on the screen, and you got all this shuriken and the ninja stars being thrown at you, and you have to tap the screen to fend them off with your sword. And this was the first one that was featured by Apple with the minigame strategy. And in a week, we got like 400,000 downloads. And I was like, hey, that wasn't so difficult. Like the 5th game, and we made it. And then I went to check the ad networks, that how much money did we make, because it's banner advertising. And I think the lifetime revenue for this game is like 3,000. So made less money than it cost to develop it. But the good thing here is that the team was able to publish a lot and learn from these failures, and they realized that if they fail, I'm not going to yell at them, or they're not going to be fired. And they learned to work as a team and develop their ideas and become better at generating ideas. But at the end of this process, of course, we had been like improving our format. So towards the end, they were not allowed to do whatever they want, like any idea they get. So we realized that maybe we should have some kind of structure or format to make these games. And we realized that in order to stand out, we should have some kind of strategy. And I'll explain more why. So first of all, if you want to make a lot of small games and make money with them, you should have tons of games. So with 3 pairs, we weren't really able to produce them fast enough. So because they had to work, the games didn't make enough money to work on only them, we ended up not producing enough. And we realized that if we just try to make a fun, cool game, it's really difficult to stand out on the market. And this doesn't generate revenue, and the games were like totally different, very disconnected, so we didn't really have people who download a Dodreams game download the second one either. So maybe just a few % of the players played several games. So that was the challenges. That's why it was a bad strategy. But what were the good things about it? As I mentioned, it really unlocked the team creativity, and we learned what it means to fail fast. So often people think that failing fast is about increasing the likelihood of success, or at least making your failure less likely. But failure is guaranteed. So what you need to do is make sure that you lose as little money as possible when you fail, and have as little risk as possible in your failure, because then you have time and money to try again. And the good thing that, hey, at least one of those games was featured. So when we were getting in touch with Apple and Google, at first they ignored us, but then they saw that, hey, like every couple of months these guys are delivering a new game, so we should maybe take notice of them. But yeah, as I mentioned, the realization was that we need to solve a major problem in gaming to stand out. And this is an interesting question, like, do game developers ever ask why they are making a game? Or what problem does gaming solve, or this game solve? So the obvious answer would be that, well, we're removing boredom from the world. But that's quite vague. It's not something that really allows you to stand out. So what we realized was that if you think of consumers, this is one major problem in gaming. Parents hate it when their children are glued to these devices or fighting over whose turn it is to play. Also, when you hang out with your friends, there aren't very many mobile games you can play together with your friends. So I feel that mobile gaming can sometimes be an isolating experience, disconnecting us from others in the world. Maybe the most recent example is Pokemon Go, where they have to have a warning that when you play the game, please be aware of your environment, because you might like walk off a cliff and die when you're playing the game. So that was one thing, and this, of course, is the problem for the studios. This is very old. So it says there that 500 iOS games published every day. Of course, now it's probably in the 700s or 800s. So we try to figure out that how could we solve these two problems? Solve the consumer problem, and that way get the stand out from all these games that are published, make sure that people want to download our game, and when they download our game, they want to return it to that game the next day, and ideally bring their friends along in the experience. So my team had to think about all these games they played as kids and what they loved, and then they came up with this, Drive Ahead. And Drive Ahead is a game that really turned the course for our studio, and I guess the best way to explain what it is to show a little video about it. So Drive Ahead is a gladiator car fight game. What that means is that you get points by hitting your friend in the head with a car. This is a simple premise, simple idea that makes people chuckle and laugh all across the world, no matter if you live in Brazil or the US or Russia or China. Everybody thinks this is funny. It is a local multiplayer game, so you can play against your friend on the one and same device. That's how we started off. Now you can play also against your friends online. It's a free-to-play game. It's a collecting game, so you unlock new cars, these characters or those helmets and tracks. And we make most of our money through advertising, and then there are, of course, in-app purchases to move along faster. And this August, we launched a partnership with Mattel. So the game is big enough now that Mattel got interested in it, and we brought the Hot Wheels brand into the game. So this was like a childhood dream come true to all of our team members, that these toys that they played with when they were kids, now they are able to bring them into a game. And it was a joyful day when we got well, that's pretty awesome replay clip there. So the blue one is the player. He's a survivor, I would say. Does this ever end? Okay, mission complete. Oh, an extra replay. So this is here you get a sneak peek about our. Oh, there's just advertising. Okay, yeah. So that's the second game, but we'll talk about it later. So that's Drive Ahead, currently available with Hot Wheels content, and it was a joyful day at the office when we got a box delivered from Mattel with 100 toy cars and 5 track sets, and then the team was playing with them and trying to think that how would we bring this experience into the game, and it's very useful. So as I said, this is our family of games now. So Drive Ahead, it's the original game. It's a gladiator car fight game. The second game is Drive Ahead Sports. It's sports with cars. So simple idea. We try to keep this really simple, that you know how to explain what the games are. And then there's Drive Ahead Mini Golf. It's an AR game made with AR kit. We launched on Wednesday, so it's been out only a couple of days. So the story here is that you got those crazy car gladiators battling against each other on the arena, and we wanted to imagine what do they do to relax. So they play mini golf, but I'll show you later, it's not your regular mini golf. It's a little bit crazy. But next I'd like to show you a couple of slides on how we evolved this family of games. So the most important thing for us was to have this realization that we want to solve the problem in gaming that parents hate it when your children are fighting over the device, and there aren't that many games you can play together when you're hanging out with your friends, by making local multiplayer games. So you play against your friend on the one and same device. This is the most cost-efficient way to test if something is multiplayer fun, because you don't have to invest into online multiplayer technologies or servers or anything like that. Let's just see if it's fun if we're competing against each other. So Drive Ahead grew really fast thanks to regular featuring from the stores, and we think of it as a service, so we update it every 3 weeks with new content and events and features. And last summer, or summer 2016, we had an idea that could it be fun to play sports with these cars. So we had an idea for a sports game. So we decided that during the Euro Soccer Cup and Copa America, that we will make a limited time summer event where you can play soccer with your cars. And we told the fans when we launched it that this is a limited time event. If you want to play it, you have to play it right now. It's going to go away in 2 months, and we wanted to see what the feedback was. And the fans immediately started writing us messages that please don't remove this, that it's so much fun, that it's unfair that you make it limited time only. So what we decided then was that we dedicate the team to making a standalone game out of this. So by the time when we remove the limited time event, we can say that, hey, there's a new game available. And so this is what it did. We were able to validate with real customer data. So you remember, this is one of the things I failed with in my own startup, that I developed an app without testing it first with real users. So we had from several months' time evidence that people like to play soccer with the cars, so we can launch the standalone game. So at one point then in the game, when you entered this game mode, there was a pop-up that this game mode is going away, but we have already published another game, Drive Ahead Sports, where you can have the same experience, so please go download it. And this is really the power of the community. And the single most important thing that sets us apart from most game studios is that we actually have an active and large community. So there's over 1.5 million fans, nearly 2 million now, who have shared over 5 million replay clips online. So if anyone knows the service EveryPlay from Unity, we're the second biggest game there lifetime. So the good thing about having a game with a simple, fun premise, like get points by hitting your friend in the head with a car, is that anyone can understand that anywhere in the world. It's fun to share them, but it's actually entertaining to watch them, even if you don't play the game. So people get it. They understand how it's played, and they know what's fun about it. So when we launched Drive Ahead Sports, our second game, we did cross-promotion in the original game, and we had 3 soft launch countries, and we were able to be the #1 or at least #3 racing or sports game in these genres on the iOS. So after that, it was really easy to talk to the Apple folks and say that, hey, look at this data, that it looks really great, people like the game. And now Drive Ahead Sports was not a very long step away from the original game. So we wanted to make something familiar, but then something that is justified to be a standalone game. So we didn't want to make a Drive Ahead 2. But if you look at the example of studios like Rovio, they have been able to have a portfolio where children, adult women and men, people of different ages are playing different kinds of Angry Birds games. So this is a challenge we proposed ourselves because, okay, hitting your friend in the head with a car, I'm sure everyone can guess that it's mostly boys, teenagers, young men who play that game. There's not a lot of women playing that game. But as a studio, we would like to have a portfolio that is broader. So we want to be in different genres, we want to have different demographics or segments playing the game. So that's why we came up with Drive Ahead Mini Golf. It was a wonderful opportunity to test ARKit, this new solution or technology that Apple has. And as I said, the backstory was that what do these gladiators do when they relaxed? So this is the game that we launched on Wednesday. So Drive Ahead Mini Golf, it's the third game in our brand. As you can see, a lot of these obstacles in the game are familiar from the previous game. So you have the exploding landmines, you have some broken cars and tires and stuff like that. This is also a local multiplayer game. So you can play against friends, but it now works on just one device. As we speak, my team is working hard to create an online multiplayer solution. So hopefully in the very near future, you can play against your friends with 4 devices at the same time. It's going to be a turn-based, real-time online multiplayer game. Okay, so how has it worked then for us? So Drive Ahead in numbers. As I said, we were like 5, 6 people when I started in the studio. Now we're 22. I hired the most recent addition to the team on Friday through text message on the Allegro train coming here. Like, can you start Monday? Okay, excellent. 5 million replay clips, over 1.5 million fans in the community. We have for the 2 live games about 10 million monthly active users, so that's about a little over 1 million every day and 70+ million downloads. And next I have my conclusions. So the original minigame strategy was very good. It was a good strategy. It's just that we didn't have the team and resources and skills to execute it. So we tried to do something that maybe Ketchup is doing by publishing a lot of games and making their own. So we couldn't publish enough of those minigames just by ourselves. So that's why we had to find another strategy. And I think one of the biggest problems that games studios have when they launch new games is this discovery. So the best way to make sure that people notice you and want to download your game is to find your own niche. So try to think of something that is broken in gaming. So what sucks with the way things are done nowadays, and how could we do that better? And as I mentioned earlier, failure is inevitable. You have to accept the fact that you will fail. But I don't want to discourage you from trying. So you have to remember that your eventual success is also inevitable. So just as long as you are able to keep the team together and you fail with minimum risk and investment, so you live to fight another day, you will eventually succeed. It might be something completely different than what you anticipated or planned originally. I could maybe show you my strategy slides for the Dodreams game studio when I started there in spring 2014, but I can summarize it by saying it's nothing like what Drive Ahead is. So I was not able to foresee this. And in the spirit of the 4C conference, I'd like to end my presentation with this picture of a tank. So how many of you have seen the movie Fury with Brad Pitt? So often people ask me that, Erik, what does it feel like to do a startup? What does it feel like to be an entrepreneur? And I usually refer to this scene in the movie Fury where Brad Pitt and his team are going in, is it Germany or somewhere, with the tank, and suddenly it breaks down. The continuous tracks break down in the crossroads of a small village, and there's like 1,000 German soldiers approaching them, and they start firing them and at them. And then one of the crew members shouts out, "Best job I ever had." And they go through, every crew member shouts out, "The best job I ever had." So that's what it has to feel like, that when you're getting hit really hard, then you think that this is the best job I ever had. And the only reason why I haven't quit as an entrepreneur and why I still have a positive outlook for future is that no matter how tough the situation has been, I always felt that the keys to success are in my own hands or in the hands of my team, that we're not victims of what's happening in the environment, or like Apple changed the App Store layout and we're not getting featured, it's so unfair and we're going to fail. So as long as you feel that it's up to us, so we have the smarts and we have the resources and strength to make it, it will happen. So I'm now happy to answer any questions you may have, and here's my contact information if you want to reach me later, and I'll be staying here also after the talk if you want to chat. Thank you.
Okay, guys, any questions?
I know that free-to-play games actually require some more support from the teams usually. So the success of your game, how did it influence to the whole scaling up of the team and so on and around?
Okay, so the question was that how does this, how have we evolved the team from there? So we have been making quite simple free-to-play games. So since they're casual games, they are casual competitive games, they're skill games, but nevertheless they are casual. So we don't have to do that much customer support. So we don't have dedicated player support people. We have shared the responsibility of community management with the teams. So we have 3 games that are live now and 1 is in development. So there's like 3 to 7 people in the teams, depending on if the game is live or in development. And the artists, sometimes the developers, they're answering questions on Facebook. They're talking to the fans also, and that's why, because I want them to have a close understanding of what's happening with the players and how they're experiencing it. Also, everybody participates in game design and everything like that. Now, as the company has grown, we have hired a product manager, and then we use outsourced partners for quality assurance, sometimes for some special video stuff or graphics and stuff like that. Thanks.
Anybody else?
We have a question here. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for the presentation. It was very good. And you didn't test your mini games at all, the first one. Yeah? Why is it so? Even with your friends, with nobody. Yeah?
We did test them, yes, this way, like with friends, or if I was at an airport. I would ask the person sitting next to me that, would you like to try a game that hasn't been published? And if they said that, oh no, I'm not a gamer, then I'd say that I want especially you to test it because I want to see how like casual mass market responds to this. So, but other than that, there wasn't really any testing. We just wanted to get them out as soon as possible and then get real player feedback. Because if you ask like 20 people, yeah, you can get some feedback on maybe like the UI. I did have some friends and relatives like play the game, and then I take video like over their shoulder and then show it to my team. And then we had a partnership with a school, which means that my friend is a teacher. So I went to visit the school and we brought the games there. So we did a little bit of testing, but I believe in the numbers and analytics. So you can test some things like this in a qualitative fashion, but as soon as possible, it's nice to get like numbers, data on like retention and stuff like that. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your speech. I have 2 questions about your past. Before you was invited to Dodreams team. About your startup experience. How much investment you had before you started your own startup, and what was the application you was developing?
Okay, so the good thing about Finland is that we pay a lot of taxes. So that's why there are several government funding programs available, especially if you're a university researcher like I was, to test the commercial potential of an idea. So I think it was really bootstrapping. So in my own startup, it was about maybe like 200,000 that I gathered over the 3 years that was spent. That's including like all my savings, getting credit card debt, selling any stock I had bought and everything like that. And so not that much money, but more about finding people who got so excited about the idea that they would say that I'm going to work for half price or for free for a while to see if this works out. And then the idea was that if it's successful, they get stock options or will be paid once it's launched. There was a couple of products we developed. So the first one was a soap opera that you could follow on Facebook as an application. It was an interactive narrative. You can choose which character you follow and change the edit of the video. People didn't understand it at all. They just wanted to see a story. That was horrible. So that was my biggest failure. Then second one was a citizen journalism project where you could put words in the mouth of politicians, like suggest taglines for it. It was a fun website, but there was no business. It's just an idea, something that maybe an advertising agency might develop, right, Juuso? And the third one, I tried to end loneliness in the world. So I had this application called Freudish, where the idea was that you could find a perfect person to chat with anytime you need. And I thought that people have personal trainers, They have life coaches. So would they pay for a personal entertainer? So there was like there was an actor who could like be your best buddy or tell you fun stories or just listen to you. And I tested in Finland, which is probably the worst place to test something like that because Finns are so shy, right? And I got a media company excited that they promoted this on their website, and they were driving traffic, and just people didn't want to download it. They didn't want to use it. So that's why I felt really lousy after doing that for 3 years.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting to see how the growth from like small company to like 70 million downloads. And I was thinking about this transition from being like a small company, 6 people on the staff, and then to like almost like 4 times as much people like you have now. So was this transition like natural, or did you lose something in the process, like, you know, some cozy feeling of everyone, you know, like family, or, you know, how did it went for you?
Okay, so when we were 6 people, we didn't really have any like production or project management methods in use. So it's just that people started working, and then I talked to them daily, and then they would eventually tell me that the game is ready. And then when you have like bigger games and more people, then we realized that, hey, maybe we should have some kind of methodology here, because you have problems like the schedules can't be estimated accurately, and things are late and stuff like that. And I think it came quite naturally from the teams, that it wasn't so that I said to them that you have to change, that if you don't change, we're going to fail. But they were more like, hey, that we want to develop ourselves and we want to be more professional in the way we do this. So that came quite naturally. Now, but that doesn't mean that it's not painful. So if you're used to working in a certain way, and then you're expected to have a plan of what you're doing, and then we actually follow that, do you get it done, then people don't always like that. So it's been a lot of discussions, talking to people and reminding them and explaining them that this is actually better for you if we work in this more methodological way, because I think the thing that causes most stress to people is uncertainty. Like, what am I going to do next? What is most important? What should I focus on? And how long can I spend time on this? And where's the company going? What's the game going to be like? What is our goal? So there are so many questions on uncertainty, and I try to remove that by these different methods. And then we had originally a very young but very skillful and enthusiastic team, but we've been able to hire people with a couple of years more career experience. For example, in the product management, that has been very helpful to help us develop our own way of working or these tools.
Anybody else?
Thank you. One more question, please.
Go ahead.
Can you expand a little bit more on the operation of success? After you made a good game, I think the first good game, what were you doing afterwards? I mean, this marketing and operational stuff that you made.
The one thing we did different with Drive Ahead is that we had already planned what is the next update, and we were making the first update while the game was in review. Because what happened with the Ninja game was that we launched it and it got featured, and we were at the office looking at the computer screen that there's almost 100,000 downloads we got yesterday. And then we sat down and, hey, what should we do next? And the guys were talking like, hey, I've had an idea that maybe we should do this kind of feature or this kind of update. And then like, okay, let's talk more about it tomorrow. And then I looked at, another like 80,000 downloads. That's really great. But then it started going down. And because the game didn't have good retention, like 3 weeks later, there's like nobody left. And they're like, well, we were just getting started with the update, but there's nobody left, so I guess, we're not going to make the update. So let's start making a new game. Anybody have an idea for a new game? And then they're scratching their head, and luckily they came up with Drive Ahead. So I think that was like the most important thing, that we had an idea of what the game should be. So I like developing games with a mini-game strategy. I'm perfectly fine with the first version to be like a minimum viable product, a small game. Like Drive Ahead Mini Golf is quite a small game now that it went live, but it was more important for us to have it live when iOS 11 is launched than to make a perfect game for another 6 months. And I think the fans also appreciate it when you're steadily updating it, bringing new content or new features. So that was the most important thing. Second thing was the community. So I would love to say that we planned Drive Ahead to be viral, but it is luck. And we got lucky because we tried many times. So the more you practice, the luckier you get, right? So the game is funny. People love to watch it. So we started focusing on that. And for example, every week we make a collection of the best replays that the fans have. And because there's 5 million video clips on every play, so we've developed our own tool to search through it and find the most popular clips that have most views or likes or stuff like that. And our artist makes an edit, and we publish it in the game and social media. So when you're playing in the game and there's a daily challenge, you might see your own clip there as an example of what is the best replay for this mission. So those were, I guess, the 2 most important things. Oleg?
Thanks, Erik. Always a pleasure to listen to you. And as always, great presentation. I have 2 questions. First of all, how are you making the hiring decisions, and how many foreigners do you have in a company?
So the way we hire people is, if it's a junior position, I want to see a portfolio. That has this person been able to complete a game project? So if you're an artist or a developer, it doesn't matter what your job is, but you should have taken something to completion. With senior people, then we want to hire people who have done what they're coming to do with us. So if you want to be a senior person, then you don't come there to learn. If it's a junior, then you can come to learn. And what was the second question? How many foreigners? So we used to have 2, because my mother is American, so I'm Finnish. I have dual citizenship, so I was a foreigner, and then we have one lady who is a Swedish-speaking Finn. So though she is a Finnish citizen, I said that she's a foreigner. Okay, and until 2 months ago, we went to 1 foreigner when we actually hired the first real foreigner. So we had a fellow join us from DNA West, so he used to work for this Japanese studio in South America and San Francisco. For about 2 years already, we've been doing all our documentation in English, and all our documents are in English, so we've been ready to hire people outside of Finland. So especially with the game being so global, like Russia is our Russia is our largest market on Android in Drive Ahead. And we don't have anybody who speaks Russian in our team. So we have to use a translator to ask, like, what is this player saying? Is this negative or positive? It's like we wanted to work with the influencer. There's a guy who publishes a lot of clips from our game on YouTube, and we'd like to promote him inside our game, but we're afraid to do it because we don't know what he's saying. Maybe he's like swearing or doing some racist stuff or something. Or maybe he's just saying wonderful things. Maybe it's funny. So we had to have a translator, like, watch the whole 40-minute clip or 20-minute clip and then write down like bullet points, what is the person speaking of. So yeah, definitely we want to be more international, and we will be hiring at least 5 people this fall. So if you're interested in working in Helsinki, come talk to me.
Anybody else? Okay then, thank you, Erik, for your encouraging speech.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
So we keep catching our speakers in the hallway and putting cameras in front of them. Hi, please introduce yourself.
My name is Samuel Ranteskla. I work for Microsoft as a principal program manager out of Sweden.
Okay, Samuel, so let's talk about games. What's your favorite game?
Well, I wish I played a lot more games than I actually do. So I have to go back into the past. Like one of my really favorite games is Jag the Lions 2 from like 92, 93. I think it was made here in Russia, if I'm not mistaken. Civilization, always been a big fan of that. And then the Enemy Unknown UFO trilogy from the 90s. There's so many games, I mean, it's like impossible to select one. But they're all strategic games, the ones that are my favorite.
Yeah, you're obviously a tactician. That's commendable. But do you remember the very first game you've ever played?
Decathlon, probably on the x86, somewhere around 84.
Wow, that's... I don't even remember that one.
It's like you basically play Decathlon and you just hammer at the keyboard to go faster, like 10 different sports events. Played it like crazy. I was 8 years old then.
Wow. How did you get into the gaming industry?
It was by chance, actually. So I was studying at Uppsala University, doing computer science, and they had this fair where companies were meeting the students. And there was these two guys that they've started a game company in the basement, and they wanted somebody to write a BSP tree, binary space partitioning tree. And I was looking for my thesis, so I figured let's combine those. So I joined them, I wrote my thesis in the games industry, and then from there on kind of like just went on. So this was 2000.
But now in 2017, what's your favorite and least favorite thing about game dev?
I mean, I think the games industry is awesome. Great place to work. There's so much passion. There's skilled, very intelligent people. I think that's my favorite thing. The least favorite thing is that, which I covered in my speech a little bit, I think that we're looking a little bit too much at how do we turn time into money, rather than seeing like how do we educate our kids. I really want to, that's my passion myself, is like, take this experience, make our kids better tomorrow than they are today. I'm a parent as well, so that's coming from that.
Well, that's a very noble thing to do.
I don't know if noble, just I think it would be a good thing for us.
Definitely is. About your speech, did you have any interesting questions that maybe stood out?
Yeah, there was some interesting questions like if we look at mixed reality, what's going to happen with that? What's the dangers with that? I couldn't really answer them because let's see what happens.
But if you were a part of your own audience, what question would you like to ask yourself?
That was a tricky one. Are you sure that you're right?
Are you?
No.
Well, we can be sure 100%, but still, we're trying to foresee the future here. How do you like the conference?
Love it. St. Petersburg, great place. Wargaming, excellent hosts. It's a great place to be. You should come to the next one.
Definitely do. Say, if you had the chance to go back in time to when you just started working in the industry and give yourself one advice, what would it be?
Try one of your ideas out.
That's very good. Thank you very much, Samuel. I hope you like the conference. Thank you. We got another one of our speakers here at 4C and would like to ask him some questions. Hi, please introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Erik, and I'm the CEO of the Dodreams game studio based in Helsinki, Finland.
Very nice to meet you, Erik. Tell me, what's the very first video game you've ever played?
I guess when I was a little kid, my dad was in banking and he had a lot of business trips and he went to Japan. And he brought me one of these Nintendo handheld, like small games. It probably was Donkey Kong. So that's my first memories with gaming. And then I played a lot of Oil Panic with the Disney characters. So fond memories with those. Favorite gaming memories? Well, I like games that I can play with my friends. I remember when I was in high school, we'd go visit my friend's house and we played a lot of these like sports games together, like NHL 95 and some F1 racing games. So I would say that maybe NHL 95 is the game that I have played most with my friends, and I have fond memories of, you know, starting after school and then realizing this like 2 a.m. and knowing that my mother will be very angry when I come home late.
That happened to all of us, I think. How did you start in the video game industry? What led you here?
I was earlier a marketing lecturer at this business school in Helsinki. And then at some point I realized that instead of talking about business, that I'd like to do business myself. I had my own startup for 3 years. Did different kinds of entertainment apps. I was interested in storytelling and apps and online and social media. After that, I did that for 3 years, failed miserably. But I guess the one thing I learned was how to test concepts early with real customer data. Because when you have little money, you need to be sure that you're spending it wisely. And I had the opportunity to join an existing team. So I joined Dodreams as a CEO. And together with the wonderful team I have there, we started with these mini games, eventually came up with Drive Ahead, which is our current franchise that we're developing.
Sounds great. Tell me what...
Like this? Okay. Yeah.
Just a bit in the camera.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So what's your favorite thing about the video gaming industry, or maybe just something you strongly like about it?
I think my favorite thing about the gaming industry is the community of developers. So traveling around the world, meeting wonderful people who make games, and talking to people and learning from them. I think it's really cool how in gaming people are very open to share their experiences about the business aspect of running a game studio, management stuff, tips and advice on scaling and growing a company. It has been very useful for me, and hopefully by giving talks at events like this, maybe I can give something back to the community.
Oh, you definitely are. Anything that maybe irritates you or something you don't like about the industry, strongly dislike?
Well, I think in recent years, games are developed with data and analytics, and that's of course very important. And I think all the creative decisions should be based on data. But what I've noticed is that studios maybe give up quite easily on games and their communities. So we have found that if we really invest in the community and take care of the players by making regular updates to the game, thinking of the game not as a product but as a service, then the community will support you through difficult times.
What trends do you think are going to persist or maybe appear anew in like a 10 years time? Let's make a prediction.
Oh, that's a very tricky question. So with everything developing so fast, I guess it's really difficult to say. I'm very excited about AR. So our studio, we launched our first augmented reality game, Drive Ahead Mini Golf, just yesterday. So I'm very interested in seeing how this market will develop in the next year or two. If you look at 10-year perspective, then maybe games will be everywhere. Maybe like your glasses could be a platform for playing games.
I'd love that.
Yeah. So maybe it will be very interesting to see what kind of sessioning games will have when people could basically be playing all the time.
What do you think is more important in a game, like one of its aspects, the ever discussed questions, the graphics, the gameplay, the game design, the storytelling maybe?
We usually start with a fun core gameplay. So of course we want to make fun, cool games, but we found that that's not enough. So you need to make sure that your players have a reason to return to the game often, and they want to return with their friends. So I think planning this progression and making sure that there are some kind of events like live operations, I think that's very important. And though everybody knows monetization is important, like just thinking of the path the player takes in the game and when are they presented with opportunities to spend money or watch videos or do something like that, like connecting the revenue model with making the game experience better. I think that's very crucial.
Do you have a vision of a video game you'd like to create if you weren't restricted in absolutely no way, like financially, creatively?
There's only one right answer to this, and that is that if we would have no financial restrictions, we would be doing the exact same thing that we're doing now. So I believe that the format that we have, developing games with minimum risk and investment, testing concepts early with players, and launching games thanks to this wonderful, large and active community that we have with Drive Ahead, is the way that we would want to do it, regardless of what kind of budget we have.
Sounds fair. Let's come back to the real world for a moment. What do you think about St. Petersburg?
St. Petersburg is a wonderful place. We've been blessed by wonderful weather this time. I heard from the locals that we're very lucky to enjoy this nice weather. I've had the opportunity to visit St. Petersburg 3 times during the last year for a couple of events, and I'm always excited to meet the local developers. Our Drive Ahead game on Android, Russia is the largest market for us, and this is something that we want to understand better, like why people like the game here, and see how we as a studio could be more present in Russia and be closer to our fans, the players, on Russian social media. So that's why I'm always interested to visit Russia and meet people if I have the chance.
Well, now you have the chance, another one, at this event for C, and what do you think about it?
I've had a chance to talk at many international events in China and the US, GDC, and places in Europe. I think 4C is the best organized event I've ever been to. Yeah, you guys are taking really good care of the guests, and the lineup is awesome. So I'm giving a talk myself, but the rest of the time I have a full schedule of listening to presentations. So usually when I go to these international conferences, I'm quite tied up with meeting partners, but here I'm really going to enjoy going to the talks myself and hearing what the experiences people share.
And if you were interviewing yourself right now, what question would you like to ask yourself?
What question would I like to ask myself? I'd probably ask that, why do I have this wonderful beard?
Why do you?
Well, I'll tell you guys a secret. So I'm actually the great-grandson of Santa Claus. And that's why I have this beard, and Santa Claus said to me that you have to learn how to bring people of the world joy. So that's why for the next about 200 years I'm going to be the CEO of the Dodreams game studio. And one day, in about 200 years, when my beard is all white, then I will become the next Santa Claus.
Really looking forward to it, and from the presents from you. What are you looking forward to? What's maybe the speech that you'd like to hear most? Anything specific?
I love all these like demos and case studies that people do. I really like the talks where people go through some project and go through their experiences. So I have several of those in my schedule.
Right, sounds exciting. And now children all over the world are excited for a new Santa. And I hope you have a good time here. Thank you.
Thank you.